Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Twinsburg regular council meeting of May 11th, 2021 to order. The time is 7:30. We are at the Twinsburg Government Center Council Chamber. The meeting is being held with council and public in person while following the current COVID-19 guidelines. The meeting is also streaming live on the city's YouTube channel. Shannon, please call the roll.
Ms. McFerrin?
Here.
Mr. Scafidi?
Here.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
Mrs. Stauffer?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Present.
Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
At this time, Mr. Scafidi will lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Father, we ask for your guidance and direction in all city matters before us tonight. We give thanks to be able to be together. Let us continue to strive to make our community a better place. Help us to work together, and may we give our best always. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everyone had a chance to review the regular council meeting of April 27th minutes?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
Is
A
there
second.
any discussion? Second. Is there any discussion? Oh, we have our second, but Mr. Bellin, Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Stauffer?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes. The approval of the minutes passes 7-0. Do we have any awards or presentations this evening?
There are none.
Do we have any audience participation?
Yes. First, we have Bob Thews.
And just as a reminder, council rules allow for 5 minutes per person. Thank you.
Has that changed since the last time it was 5 minutes, or just, okay?
It's a reminder, thank you.
Well, this is Bob Thews, 2229 Demi Drive in Meadowwood subdivision. And been a while since I've had a chance to really attend a meeting. I wasn't really successful getting on the internet for some reason. I was blinded and not working well. So that really didn't end up doing much for me, and I had several things to say that I never had the opportunity to say. But in the process, 2020 was really a bummer of a year. It wasn't good for any of us, okay? And the COVID created quite a bit of problems, especially with, in my concern, with communications in general. But around, I think it was around June, the state performance audit came out. And it had, it's a very detailed report. I'm working my way through it. I may spend the rest of my life getting through it, but I'm working at it. But it did have 5 recommendations. The first one being to increase the, or put some type of a fee on the garbage. And I think that was rejected out of hand by mayor and council, and I can understand that, okay, from that end. But there were 4 other recommendations made, okay, that are basically meant to reduce the costs of the city in different aspects. One was medical, dental, and vision insurance premiums to reduce the employee cost, the amount paid per shift within certain collective bargaining agreements, renegotiate minimum manning requirements for the firefighters, and reduce parks and recreation programs and services on down the line. So that did sometime appear. I can't pinpoint the exact date. I do have a copy of the letter that was signed by council and mayor that said we'll continue to use this performance audit as we strive to provide the level of service possible to the residents of the city of Twinsburg. Operational efficiencies and balance between revenue and cost are the utmost importance. So my assumption is we're making an effort to get 2 through 5 done, okay, from that standpoint. And, but I haven't, like I said, I haven't attended all the meetings, so I don't know what has been done. So what I'm going to do is at every meeting in the upcoming couple weeks, I will be at the caucus asking about one of these. I'll go in this sequence, 2, 3, 4, 5. What has been done? What has been accomplished? What is in process? And then at the regular meeting, I will then at that particular point in time, I will synopsize, give it of what's happening, and then if you know, so if we have progress in something, I want that. Now, the reason I want to do this is that I could, and I know what the mayor would say, and he would say, just please come on in, we'll talk about it. No, this is a city of Twinsburg issue. The people of Twinsburg need to hear about it. So I'd like to take the time to literally go through each one of these and then let everybody know what the situation is. And you know, from that standpoint, that's what I want to do, because I think we're all interested in keeping our costs down, okay, from that standpoint. I'm sure you are. You just went through a pretty tough battle on raising taxes, and I'm sure you don't want to go through another one on that. So what my suggestion is help me out, help the people understand what's happening in this performance audit. We paid, what, 70-some grand for it. So, and these people have done audits for us in the past. The state has done an excellent job. Kudos from several people on the team have said it. So I'm just saying that's what's going to happen for the next couple meetings. So thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Next, we have Karen Clinton.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Law Director, Karen Clinton, Glenwood Drive. I wasn't going to speak, but after the discussion on Ordinance 21, 2021 at caucus, I thought it might be a good idea to just kind of recap. I expressed complete concern and the importance of keeping what we have always called, even though the language is a little different here, it's kind of ward protection. We wanted ward protection in our voting. We want ward representation for everything that involves the city, and that's the way it should be. It's a democracy. We're all supposed to be entitled to have an input, whether it be to vote, whether to have discussion. That's our right as citizens. Now, I don't know why somebody came up with the idea that this language in the ordinance for the Capital Improvements Board needs to be changed, other than I do remember that there was issues and there was problems with the Environmental Commission. Nobody wanted to be on that board. I don't know why. But something as important as capital, we should have a voice. It should have Ward 1 representation. And the language is that one from each ward. I don't see why it's necessary to even bring this up to change it. When I was here the last time I spoke on it, everybody at council pretty much agreed. The only person, excuse my language, that's hell-bent on shooting this down is Bill Fury. And Bill, you're too obvious. I mean, you talked about it. You talked, and what if, and maybe, and how come, and I'll be in 2 years. With all due respect, you may not even be here in 2 years. So with that said, this doesn't affect just Bill Fury. This affects everybody in the community in the city of Twinsburg. So I, again, adamantly urge you to just leave the language alone and go ahead and advertise. It's already there, as Mr. Maestro stated. It's on the books. If it's not broke, why fix it, Bill? This is your baby. We all know it. Okay, so you can shake your head no, and I'm not going to banter and argue with you. I know sometimes it's difficult And again, with COVID, there were issues, but there are a lot of people from Ward 1 that's interested in this position. And I don't see why you need to tamper with the language. So again, I urge all of council to just leave it alone. Just shoot it down and leave it alone and move forward. Move on. And I think that'll make a lot of people in the community happy. And then I just want to give a shout out to Earl Wilson. He was promoted, I believe, to captain, and he's well deserving. Years ago when I was on the fire department, he was just wet behind the ears, brand new firefighter, the part-time firefighter in another community. And anyway, kudos to Don Simon. He's going to be retiring. That's a long deserved. He's been working. He brought the fire department from volunteer to part-time to full-time, and he deserves a nice pat on the back too. I guess he's going to be retiring here shortly. But again, wasn't able to attend and hang out with Earl, but he's a cool guy. He deserves a position, and I just want to shout out to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Flynn.
Next, we have Bruce Baldwin.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Thank you. On New Year's Day morning, 2021, about 7:40, I was driving westbound on Route 82 from Route 91. TPT car, Twinsburg Police Department car, went through traffic light on Church Street, heading west on Route 82. Overheads were not on. I followed behind the car. It was doing 40 miles an hour to 25 mile an hour zone and turned into Dunkin' Donuts. What would this cost any other driver? I waited for 3 or 4 days and I guess started thinking, well, maybe something happened. I started thinking about it. I actually called the police department and reported it. I just let this cook on me too much, maybe. Second thing, at 2181 Route 82, west of Vantage Point Corporation Center, fire hydrant had been leaking for a little over a year. Route 82 road damage is pretty bad, must be repaired. Is anybody responsible for this? And if so, has it been this way for so long, and how much extra repair will it take to repair this road? It's in bad shape, it really is. In the wintertime, I think I see extra salt on it. Well, you know what that does to it. But, okay, thank you, good evening. Take care of yourself and each other. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And next, we have Michael Turrell.
One minute, Council. Let me get a picture of this here.
Excuse me.
I just want to get this with Bill there. Sorry.
Wait, I'm sorry, you're not supposed to be doing this at our meeting.
Okay.
It's our meeting, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, it's my 5 minutes, but thank you.
No,
Actually, it's our meeting, City of Twinsburg.
There's
Okay,
rules
good
for our
evening,
meeting.
Councilman
Thank you.
Mayor, Michael Turrell, 9930 Forest Lake Drive, Twinsburg, Ohio. Speaking on a couple of issues here, a couple items. Issue 2 passed. Congratulations to Police and Fire Department and all the city departments that put forth a good effort on this. I made a post on Roundtable last week, which was very sincere and genuine on my part, that we need to come together as one community, and Mr. Fury's finding something amusing here, to bring us all together as one community, and now we need to see our community move forward. We now have these funds that are going to be secured in place for police and fire. It's really a shame that we had to do this because other things got put in front of our fire trucks, in front of our police equipment for so many years. And that can't happen anymore. In an effort of transparency, it would be really appreciated, I know, by a number of residents. We have to put our faith and trust back in the system here. That doesn't mean that we're not going to stop watching to make sure that this money does not go there. It would be really nice. At this point, there's no reason that I can see of that we can't go ahead and put forward this capital improvements fund account for police and fire. We can open these accounts. We can throw $50, $100 in there, and we know the account is there, and we know that once these taxes start getting collected, that money will go there. And if we have a good month before the taxes start getting collected next year on this, hey, let's throw another $50, $100 in there along the way or whatever. But that would be something in good faith that would help show transparency to the residents. And speaking of transparency, I've spoken on this a couple of times. We need to get back to this thing of the Ohio Open Checkbook. I called back down there again. Mrs. House spoke about this, I think in 2015 or 2016 was the first time that it was brought up. And then there was nothing in any minutes that I had seen. I mentioned it last year. Ms. Bridgegross did say that she was looking at getting it last fall, which again, I understand 2020, all bets are off. It was a crazy year. This year we're looking at getting this thing done again this fall, with what you were saying. Yeah, we can do it a lot quicker than that. Why do we need to wait another 6 months to do something to show this transparency in our city finances? And when I talk to the people down at the state auditor, they're amazing down there. That once the information's in an Excel spreadsheet, they'll build you the website, show you how to do it, and it doesn't take much more than a couple hours to get the whole thing up and running. And everybody in the whole World Wide Web can go and check and see what's going on with our finances. And that would also help build that faith and trust from the community. I mean, yeah, you guys won your election 45 to 55%, but realistically it was less than 300 people. That's 150 homes, that's one street, two sides of one street. It's really not a lot. So that would be good. Open checkbook, get the accounts set up for capital improvements. The other thing I want to speak on is this item, Ordinance 2021. Why? Why? This makes no sense whatsoever. We have ward-specific positions for the Parks and Rec Board, but we don't have it for our capital improvements, so we're trying to eliminate it. This just stinks of putting your own people in there. I didn't know, this is the first time that I heard Mr. Fury said that we haven't had Ward 1 representation in 3 years. 3 years. How come Ward 1 didn't find someone in 3 years? I mean, you've got, Mr. Scavini, you have a lot of people that are very active in the community with city dealings, and I'm sure you can, tap your finger on someone's shoulder and say, hey, you think you might want to do this? You might want to do this? You might want to do this? I gave up applying for these boards 4 or 5 years ago. I applied 4 times in 1 year. I got passed over every single time. There wasn't a single chance I was going to get on the board. You can count me as one of your applicants right now. And to push this thing through, and when Mr. Maestro said that you guys didn't discuss it 2 weeks ago, and now you're pushing it through on an emergency, that makes even less sense. I don't understand the urgency in that whole thing of having it advertised and wait. Well, if we've waited 3 years to get a Ward 1 rep, what's another couple of months at this point, honestly? Why the urgency to change this and to lose our ward protection makes no sense.
Time.
Out of time? I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And I appreciate the grace of the lot.
Go ahead.
I'll respond. Just a quick note, Mr. Turl. October 19th, 2020, the city of Twinsburg won the Auditor State Award. We also received a 4 out of 4 star rating, which monitors transparency in government.
Oh, okay. I don't need to hear about that.
Yeah, perhaps instead of passively aggressively implying that we're corrupt.
No, I'm not passively aggressively implying anything, Mr. Barr. I'm saying that this
I'm
will
sorry.
offer
I'm
transparency.
sorry,
of
you're not
order.
to speak.
It's not.
You're-
The time is
This is
expired.
not, you
It's
had
not
this
in
This
time.
has nothing to do with you, sir.
You had your time to speak.
Okay.
And also, I would like to add that we were here at 5 o'clock for a planning commission board meeting appointment, and you didn't show up. So stop telling us that we didn't appoint you to something when you don't even show up for the appointment interviews. Mr. Mayor.
Just a couple of comments, and then, Mr. Thues, I just want to address your 4 points that you were talking about, 2 through 5. So when you look at those particular issues, medical, dental, this is one thing that we've been working on since I took office. Our claims ratio was 126%. We've worked that down into the 60s, 70s. We've now flipped the switch this particular March to go self-insured, which should be some savings for the city. We've worked really hard with our employee base as well as with our vendors and our broker to reduce our medical expense costs, and also some of our ancillary products, we're working really hard to get those reduced. So that's one that we've worked on and making significant progress on. Shift diff is something that Dave and I have been talking about for a period of time prior to the performance audit. We're in the middle of a contract right now, so we've got items that we need to discuss. We could potentially be opening up a couple of these contracts, so we may have the ability to look at shift diff and use some of those recommendations from the performance audits, but we are in the middle of a contract right now. Minimum manning, we did get a MOU on minimum manning with our fire department shortly after the performance audit came out. We were restricted with the amount of the use of any part-timers really to satisfy minimum manning. So we do have that ability now. The fire department worked great with us, the union. So we do have a lot more flexibility, and some of the other changes that the chief has made on a policy standpoint is really significantly going to be impacting the overtime in that particular department. And then the last one is Parks and Rec. So one of the biggest changes we've made is also at our fitness center. We were running about 110 plus classes a week at the fitness center, paying instructors. And now we've really scaled that back. We've looked at a lot of our programming that we've done in here at the city, both outside the fitness center and within the fitness center, and have really scaled back some of those programs and looking at ways for cost saving and as well as increased fees. So a lot of those issues, while we don't sit up here and broadcast them, were addressed and are currently underway. So I don't know if that helps you with some of your questions. You're shaking your head no, but so I don't know that there's anything I can say that'll satisfy any of your questions.
I'm just saying that, you know, it needs to be put out that this is happening. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying
I
it
think
needs
some-
to be-
thank
you
you.
want to talk about transparency, that's one thing you need to put out and say, we're working on these things. for people.
Oh, wait.
That's all I'm trying to say. Now, we gave you all 5 of them, that's great, 4 of them, that's great news, but, I mean, you know, bang, 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 bang. I'm still gonna ask, you can answer it.
Okay, thank you,
That's fine.
Mr.
Okay,
Hughes.
I just
Thank you.
wanted to share some information with you.
No, I appreciate it, I do appreciate it, but I'm trying to get it out to the people.
Okay, moving on to council communication and committee report. Mrs. Stoffer.
Okay. All right, so let's see. There was an ARB meeting on May 6th. There were 4 items on the agenda. 3030 White's Way, a seasonal patio enclosure room, 1900 South Case Parkway, a sign, Maryvale Drive sign, and 9945 Vale Drive, another sign. The next scheduled meeting is May 20th. I also attended the Jedi meeting yesterday where Michael Brown walked the members through the diversity training program that all the cities have taken or gone through. It was really well done, and I have to say I'm really happy to see that the mayor and the city is taking a serious effort at educating the employees on the issues of diversity. I really found it to be, I just thought it was he did a great job. The CIC had a Zoom meeting on May 3rd to discuss the RFQs that came in. They received 2 proposals. We are planning on meeting with each of the companies to try and address and clarify some of the information on those. The interviews will take place on May 18th. And that is all I have for tonight.
Mr. Fury.
Thank you. I attended the CIC meeting as well. I also attended the Treasury Investment Board. The Treasury Investment Board includes the finance director, the mayor, and our portfolio manager. In 2015, the city decided to put part of our unexpended balance into short-term and medium-term CDs, so that instead of getting 0.007 interest in STAR savings accounts, we can recoup some of the monies that we off our cash on hand. These investments range from bonds that are 6 months to 4 years in depth, and since 2015, we're receiving almost a 2% yield, and that equates to $957,000 in the last 5-6 years. We've agreed to put an additional $2.5 million into short-term monies, because as these bonds mature, they fall off, and we rebalance the back half of this. So this is a great program. Karen House started it, and again, our interest rates in the meeting we had, they said the interest rates were 0.007 versus the 2% that we're getting. So we've made almost $1 million off of our cash on hand. I'd also like to make everybody aware that this summer on June 28th, Brian Donato will be hosting the McTarian Golf Scholarship golf outing. The money that's raised at this golf outing at Glen Eagles goes to the Brian McTarian Scholarship Fund, which is given to high school seniors who are planning on pursuing a career in law enforcement. If you have interest, Brian's phone number is 216-224-4308, and or B. Donato at Twinsburg at ohio.us or .ohio.us. If you just call the police department, they can hook you up with Brian. So, an issue that's been brought to our attention, well, we've known it for a long time, but when we did our, when the city went through and did over 1,000 interviews with residents about what they thought were the issues for the city of St. So the biggest challenges facing the city of Twinsburg. Number 2 on that list was false information on Facebook. And when I spoke at the school board meeting, Tina Davis, the president of the school board, also brought up that they're having a hard time with incorrect, non-factual information being brought up on Facebook that becomes, local legendary, facts that are incorrect. I had an opportunity to stand out with some firemen, both a captain and a lieutenant in the fire department. They talked about how they've been blocked and unable to respond to what they thought was false information regarding our bond levy. So this was posted recently by an individual that stated that I supposedly said that we had $22 million in the general fund and that currently it sits at 10.6. That picture is me sitting next to Mike Turl at an interview to run for office, and there's a tape of it, and I'll show you what I said.
Just contracted the state for an additional round of performance audits, again, to see how we can do more with less and grade ourselves to the other communities. Financially, the city's in great shape right now. Our credit rating is an AA2, which puts us in the 90th percentile of cities. We have $21 million in cash on hand, and our general fund is actually on track to rise $2 million this year.
Throughout 2019 and 2020, I consistently used a statement of cash, which is a monthly financial document that's available on our website. In fact, the same financial information that we get monthly as a council is all posted on the city's website now. This particular version of the statement of cash was from July of 2019. And it shows that our general fund was starting at about 8.2 million. And I say it's trending up because we had a balance of, our ending balance was going to fall at 10.2 million for a $2 million increase. And I said that we had $21 million on hand. And you can see there's $20.798 million in cash on our unexpended balance. The unexpended balance is the money that we have in multiple funds. It's not just our general fund. I assure you, I absolutely know the difference between a general fund and an unexpended balance. And I have never made a mistake of confusing the two. I would also like to point out this year, this is the most current version. It has us at a beginning balance for the general fund of $11.8 million, and today our expected ending balance is $11.05 million. The unexpected balance is basically $26 million, 25.917. Again, these documents are available on our website. If you have questions about finances of the city of Twinsburg, do not rely on Facebook. Call the city, call the finance director. Do you want your investment advisor to use the National Enquirer to place your investments? I would doubt that. We're going to make an effort to point out financial irregularities that are posted over the next year so that we can correct those and hopefully make some sense of some of the things that are out there. Thank you. That's all I have this evening.
Mr. Buck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since our last meeting, none of my committees have met. We do have a planning commission meeting scheduled for this coming Monday, the 17th. It will be held here in person at council chambers at 7 p.m. I would like to thank everybody that came out to the polls last week, regardless of how you voted. Personally, I hope that we had had more voter turnout. Again, it's really easy to be a keyboard commando, but to get out there and actually vote where it counts, we all need to make sure that we're doing that, again, regardless of how you vote. Get out there and vote. It's your right. It's your duty as a member of the community. Congratulations to our public safety forces on their long overdue victory in this regard. This is probably something that should have been done years and years and years ago. To have a dedicated stream for capital to try and offset some of those big ticket items for police and fire. I think that's just good forward thinking, and to say that we can fund our pension obligations out of a dedicated stream of revenue, that makes me proud to sit up here. So again, big shout out to everybody that came out and voted. Thank you for everybody that voted yes on issue 2. Special thanks to those who walked the streets to support issue 2. That's all I have. That's it.
Mr. Safidi.
Thank you. Good evening. The Finance Committee met 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately I was not, I was out of town that night, and I believe Mr. Barr gave a detailed report about that right after, at the council meeting right afterwards. The next Finance Committee meeting will be on May 25th at 6 o'clock right here in the council chambers. My other committees have not met, and I believe there's nothing scheduled at this point. The Safety Committee was to meet last week, I believe it was, and that was canceled due to no agenda items. So that's it. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Mrs. Walker.
Good evening, everyone. On Monday, May 3rd, we were going to have a Jedi meeting of the subcommittees, and we were going to go over our binder review, and it was canceled, and our next meeting will be late May, so I'll post when that meeting will be. On Tuesday, May 4th, I attended the Environmental Commission. Mr. Fury was out of town. And on June 12th, the Environmental Commission will have document shredding at Public Works from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, and June 12th is on a Saturday, so you can mark your calendars for that. There will be a maximum of 6 bags or 6 boxes, and you must be a Twinsburg resident, and no newspapers allowed in the bags or in the boxes. Now, this will be posted in the Twinsburg Bulletin later on this month and possibly early June. I also swore in 2 environmental commissioners, Crystal and Pete, and I think by the time Mr. Fury comes back to the meeting, you'll be swearing in 2 more people. And our next Environmental Commission meeting will be September 7th at 7 p.m. Yesterday, we had our diversity and inclusion training at City Hall, and Councilwoman Maureen Stauffer and Councilperson Mr. Bellin were there, and we really had a great time. It was one of the best trainings that I have attended, and our course objectives were understanding the language and imagery of diversity, understand what diversity is and isn't, and its importance to the city and also the city of Twinsburg, and explored the different dimensions of diversity, which was absolutely great. And we all participated in a cultural diversity self-assessment, and some of us came out with flying colors, so which makes it so good. I also attended the swearing in at the fire station today, and all I could say is that's a good thing. People are getting promoted and not demoted or laid off in the city of Twinsburg. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Ballin.
Thank you. Good evening. Yesterday, Monday, May 10th, I also attended the Jedi Committee. I really have to give kudos to Mr. Brown.
Yes.
He did, I work for a Fortune 200 company. I've had diversity training, and I would put that training up against anything that I've ever seen. So it was outstanding.
It was.
The next meeting of the full Jedi Committee will be on Monday, June 14th at 6 p.m. here in Council Chambers. The Jedi Community Outreach Subcommittee will next meet on Monday, June 21st, 6 p.m. in Council Chambers. The Board of Zoning Appeals meeting that was scheduled for Wednesday, April 28th was canceled due to lack of an agenda item. The May meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, May 26th at 6:30 p.m. At this point, there are no cases on the agenda. I would like to echo Mr. Barr's sentiment and thank everybody who came out and voted on Tuesday. I said plenty about issue 2 leading up to it, so I won't bother rehashing it. Thank you sincerely for coming out, and a special thanks to those people that worked the polls. That is a thankless job, and I sincerely do appreciate it. Thank you very much. I have nothing further this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. The Golf Advisory meeting will be on June 18th. And Shannon, is that going to be in person here?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have. And Mr. Mayor, do you have a report?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just some things going on around town. Next door, we just were able to swear in Rocky Bernardo as a lieutenant and Earl Wilson as captain. We've got Don Simon, who's been a longtime firefighter, captain in the city, retiring, and so this opened up some positions, but both of them are just well known in the community and really respected in the department, so I'm excited about their promotion. We've seen a lot of change, and we're going to continue to see a lot of change in the fire department, but I think it's all positive, and we're all looking forward to what the next couple of years are going to bring. I was able to attend some fire training. I don't get too many opportunities to attend fire training, and this was more of a personal small-scale training with Paul Neese, who was, I believe, a part-time firefighter here for years and a full-time elsewhere. But he was caught in a house and kind of relived that and had pictures about the issue that occurred in that house in terms of, I probably won't say it right, but there was like a flash fire that really discussed on how oxygen gets in and out of a house and what the firemen are to do. But it was interesting to see that whole entire story and to see how they discussed handling that particular situation. And hopefully I'll get invited to more other trainings, but I do want to thank Paul, and I know there was another firefighter who also teaches at, I believe, Cuyahoga Community College that came and volunteered their time to discuss this issue with our firefighters. We'll be having, I was contacted by the high school, the art department at the high school, so we're going to have this kind of pop-up chalk art on the walkway leading into City Hall on Monday. So if you're driving by, stop and take a look. So I'm anxious to see what they're going to produce out there. I didn't see any preliminary sketches, so they have free reign to do what they want on their front chalk out there. So we'll have the art department out there on Monday. Rock the Park, for those who've been following it, our first concert sold out really quickly. We can max out around 1,500 people. I think we've pushed it up to 1,600, and we've got 850 tickets sold. That's what we capped it at, and they're sold out for our first concert. So we're really excited about. I know everyone is really looking forward to the concerts coming back this summer. So I can't wait for that first one. I just want to thank Jen Bennettson and the crew over at the fitness center. I was approached by the after prom committee. They were really scrambling to try to find a place for after prom this year, and we opened up the doors to the fitness center, and we allowed after prom to occur there. So I believe that the kids were all well behaved from what I hear. I know we had police presence there and a bunch of teachers and volunteers, but I hear it went great. And so I just want to thank Jen and that crew for their willingness to open up our doors to our fitness center and allowing, what was a really crazy year for our seniors to have, a fun night after their prom. So I want to thank them. And I do want to just congratulate all the graduates that we've seen here around Twinsburg from college. My son was one of them, and I see all the Facebook posts and all the different things, and talking to parents, and our school issue passed, issue 6. We really have a lot to be proud of here in Twinsburg, our school district. When you look at some of the paths our kids have taken, and where they are today, a lot of it was because of what they got here at Twinsburg School District. So I'm glad their issue passed. It was renewal, but I do want to congratulate all the college kids who have made their way through. Shannon, you had a graduate also this year, so I think a lot of us did. And then lastly, just to also thank the residents for issue 2. We spent a lot of time talking about issue 2 and the need for it, and we're working through with the county right now on setting up specific accounts that's going to go into, and so it's one of the things that is going to really help the long-term stability of the city, as well as the safety department. So I'm thankful for the residents that came out and voted. And that is all I have this evening, and we do have Chief here for a department head report. And our department heads will be coming back probably more in the month of June. We may see some in this month, but I've got them all lined up for different times.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chief.
Good evening.
Good to see you all again.
Good to see you.
For the month of April, the fire department responded to 280 calls for service. For the year, that brings us up to 1,042 calls. That's about 13% ahead of last year's pace. And just for your reference, of those calls, 36, almost 37% of them overlap with another call. So it's just not one at a time, often multiples. On the fire prevention side of things, we had 76 inspections last month. And just for reference there as well, we have just over 1,900 sites in the city and the township that we inspect each year. So we need to keep a pretty brisk pace through the course of the year to make sure we cover all those. We also completed 6 fire investigations. 64 training sessions were held, totaling about 146 hours of training. And we didn't have any public education events this past month, but I'm happy to have hosted 4 of our high school students for their senior experience for the last week of April and last week and this week. 4 seniors that will most likely proceed into the fire service, and all 4 of them are part of the CVCC program, and they'll graduate with a firefighter 1 and 2 certification and EMT certification. So we're looking forward to hopefully capturing them and that talent and keeping it in the city, and we're working on some plans to accomplish that. Points of interest, we did once again test the weather warning sirens. They continue to function well. There are little issues here and there, mostly having to do with the little indicator flashing lights. On the fleet side of things, our Med 2 is still out of service. That's the one that needed the replaced engine. It's approaching a year now that's been out of service. And the shop, the international shop, continues to have trouble to actually get it delivered to us without the check engine light coming back on. So they continue to work on that. And we've been having some issues with ladder 2 with some hydraulic problems and some suspension problems. Both of those that the service department is trying to address. On the good side, our new engine is in Ohio. It got delivered from the manufacturer to the sales shop down in McConnellsville, Ohio. They're doing some fine tuning of a couple things and adding some equipment that's part of the package. And we think we might see it here in town by the end of the week. Our COVID operations continue to proceed. We are still in good shape with PPE. And to date, we've only had 4 of our employees test positive for COVID. And we've had about 8 that have spent time away from work because of someone in their family being diagnosed with it. So so far we've managed real well to stay healthy through the whole process. And as has already been mentioned tonight, we were happy to swear in Earl Wilson as a captain. He's been with us since 1993. And then Rocky Bernardo as lieutenant. He's been with us since '97. And we've also added 2 part-time employees during the course of last month as well. So we continue to try to add to our rosters in that regard. And I too want to take just a moment to especially thank everyone that's supported issue 2. That does make a big difference in how we can plan for the future. So I appreciate everyone's support in that regard. That's all I have for tonight.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to legislation and ordinance 20.
Sarah?
Oh,
Sarah, do you have a report?
Oh, Sarah, sorry.
Sure. Good evening, Council. So the American Rescue Plan Act guidelines were released yesterday, and we'll talk about those at this month's Finance Committee meeting. So now that we have the details on the use of those funds, we can start planning it out. We do have a lot more time to decide how best to use those funds versus those funds that came in last year that we had that really tight timeline. We had to figure out a way, the best way to use those dollars. So that's one of the nice things about the American Rescue Plan. Also at Finance Committee, we'll talk about the passage of issue 2 and how to best be transparent with those dollars to the community, the best way to set up a new fund to house those dollars and spend them so that everybody can see where that money is going, so that we keep our word to the community. We're still working on that online sewer billing system. We'll probably do a slow rollout this summer, and then hopefully by the fall we can roll it out to the community so folks can get their sewer bills emailed to them and pay online should they so choose. And then over on the IT side, the guys are staying busy. They just submitted their leads audit. We did some website training, and we worked over in the police department to do an upgrade on their MDTs. So things are good in finance and IT.
Just one more thing, Joy. So as the chief mentioned, when we look at COVID and vaccinations, the city will be hosting a vaccination site, pop-up vaccination site this Saturday from 12 to 6 at our community center. So I know the governor's focus has always been on the amount of cases per 100,000 that's starting to shift to the vaccination. So that's something that we really need to encourage friends, family, anyone we know to get vaccinated. So, but we are one of multiple sites that will be hosting a pop-up vaccination site this Saturday from noon to 6 at our Twinsburg Community Center. So that's all I have.
I have a question for Sarah. Sarah, so setting up the fund for receiving the tax from the issue 2, is that regulated how you have to go about it and set it up, or maybe you could explain that?
Sure. So we're working with the county and the state to make sure that we set that up the best way to comply with all of their regulations while at the same time being transparent to the community. So we hope to have legislation this month that we can talk about it at Finance Committee, and then you'd have that legislation on first reading that night.
Thank you. Okay, ordinance 21-2021.
An ordinance amending section 127.07 of the codified ordinances of the city of Twinsburg regarding the capital improvement board and declaring an emergency.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 21-2021 2021 on its third and final reading and declare an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Stoffer, seconds. The reason for the emergency is to get this advertised in enough time to appoint prior to council's summer recess. Is there any discussion on the emergency? Shannon, please call the roll.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes?
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 21-2021 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury, seconds. Any further discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes?
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
No.
Mr. Bellin?
No.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
So ordinance 21-2021 passes on the emergency. What was the number?
5-2.
5-2. Thank you. Ordinance 39-2021.
An ordinance establishing a moratorium on issuing occupancy permits for any building, structure, use, or change of use that would enable the cultivation, processing, distribution, or sale of medical marijuana for a period not to exceed 6 months and declaring an emergency.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 39-2021 on its third and final reading and declare it an emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Yield.
Mr. Barr, seconds. The reason for the emergency is to get this on the Planning Commission's agenda. Is there any discussion on the emergency? Shannon, please call the roll.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
No.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion to adopt ordinance 39-2021 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Scafidi seconds. This ordinance is to establish a 6-month moratorium on the issuing of occupancy permits for medical marijuana. This will allow Planning Commission time to review and make recommendations back to council. Is there any discussion?
Is it fair to say that that is enough time? 6 months is enough time for them to, I know it's, I think, what, be on their agenda next month?
Our goal is to get it on their next agenda, yes.
Okay,
And I do believe it's enough time.
okay, thank you.
Shannon, please call the roll.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes?
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
No.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 39-2021 passes as an emergency 6-1. Ordinance 40-2021.
An ordinance amending the current year appropriations for the general revenue account as established in Ordinance 14-2021, the appropriation ordinance for the city of Twinsburg for the year 2021, and declaring an emergency.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 40-2021 on its third and final reading and declare it an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Barr, seconds. The reason for the emergency is to get this project started in a timely manner. Is there any discussion on the emergency? Shannon, please call the roll.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Okay, make a motion to adopt ordinance 40-2021 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second. I'll yield.
Okay. Mrs. Stoffer, second. This ordinance is an appropriations amendment to wastewater capital for an additional $250,000 needed for emergency repairs to the wastewater department vehicle storage building's roof. Is there any discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Ordinance 40-2021 passes as an emergency 7-0. Moving on to unfinished business, and new business, and miscellaneous. Mr. Scafidi.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Barr.
Nothing this evening.
Mr. Bellin.
Just congratulations to Captain Wilson and Lieutenant Bernardo. Nothing further, thank you.
Mrs. Stoffer.
I have nothing this evening.
Mr. Fury.
I would like to thank the residents for supporting their schools with issue 6, and also for supporting the city on issue 2. You know, there's been a need for a long time, and there are two council people, Mr. Bellin and Mr. Barr, who really stuck their necks out on this for a long time, and I appreciate your leadership on this. I would also like to congratulate Captain Wilson and Lieutenant Bernardo. Great to see that many people in the fire station celebrating those gentlemen's promotion. So, best of luck to them, and thank you. That's all I have.
Mrs. Walker.
I have nothing, thank you.
Mayor Yates.
Nothing else for me this evening.
Mr. Maestros.
Nothing, thank you.
We have no absent members to excuse, and what time is it?
8:26.
The meeting is now adjourned at 8:26.